Yesterday, I heard an old woman talking about this. Today, I'm urgently recording this video. Sisters, all of you who are single, whether you are married or not, or separated, listen carefully. If you are single or about to divorce, all of you pay attention. Move to the big cities. Or, at the very least, go to small towns in the countryside. Don't stay in rural areas. If you have even the slightest chance, don't stay in rural areas. Did you hear that? That old woman said that. The situation for single people in the countryside is becoming very serious. There are many single men. A huge number. It's terrifying. If you are single or about to divorce, no matter whether you want it or not, people will do everything they can to convince you to marry. They want you to have a man by your side. No matter if he's successful or not. If he's good or bad for your life together. The important thing is just having a man nearby. The space that rural areas offer women is really limited. Did you notice that I come from the countryside? Honestly, I don't want to say too much. But the countryside has a lot of outdated, sexist thinking. If you dress a little more attractively, people will say you're not serious. If you have a cheerful personality, they will think you're having an affair with another man. If you're competent, they say you're too aggressive. If you're not capable, they say your husband must be successful, and there must be another woman out there. If you dress in a simple way, people ask why you can't keep a relationship. If you dress well, they start gossiping. Sisters, no matter what you do, nothing is ever right. You realize that many problems really come from places like this rural area. People have narrow-minded views. No room for new ideas. With outdated values and corrupted thinking. My God, I come from the countryside, but I won't go back. Sisters, I won't go back. I'm working hard to live in first and second-tier cities. If I don't stay in a first-tier city, I bought a house in a second-tier city, and I don't regret it. Sisters, God hasn't abandoned me. Now I'm divorced, and no one tries to convince me to marry, because they believe they can't have someone like me. They know I'm single, and if I go back to the countryside, no one would dare to introduce me to a man. The reality is like this. The higher you climb, the harder it is for people from the bottom to reach you. Sisters from the countryside, all of you single women, go to the big cities. Or at least go to small towns. Believe me. Believe me. My God. Moreover, I discovered another issue. In the countryside, all sisters born as daughters are pressured to have a second child. All the aunts and relatives come to persuade you to have more kids. But in the city, it's different. You don't hear those intrusive and negative comments. My God. After hearing that old woman, I was shocked. I asked if the situation in the countryside was really like that. It's terrifying. Why should I, a woman from a rural area, settle for what everyone says is my destiny? I grew up hearing that I should marry someone from my province, accept a simple life, and help support my family. But that was never what I wanted. I wanted more. So I decided to move to a big city in search of a different kind of relationship, a life I could truly choose for myself. When I started attending blind dates, I thought I had made the right decision, but things quickly changed. During these dates, I heard firsthand what many men really think about women like me. One of them, Mr. Zhong, bluntly told me, I would never marry a woman from the countryside. My family is financially well off, my parents run a business, and my marriage has to be strategic. I'll marry the daughter of a business partner to strengthen our companies. Besides, women who grew up in the city have far better qualities. Why would I choose a woman from the countryside when I could have someone with better conditions and education? His words stung, but it didn't stop there. At another date, Mr. Wang said, marry a rural woman? Not a chance. You know what it's like in the countryside? It's not marriage, it's selling daughters. Parents demand ridiculous dowries which drain all the family savings. In my area, dowries can go up to 200,000 yuan. Who can afford that? And honestly, rural women aren't anything special to justify such a high price. Marriage should be about building a better life together, but under these conditions it's impossible. Finally, Mr. Li made it clear he wouldn't choose me either. Rural women come from big families, always with lots of brothers and sisters. Marrying one means endless family problems. Her brother will need money for college or to get married, her younger sister will need help too. It's too much trouble. Plus, rural women are very attached to their parents, they do everything their parents say and never prioritize their husbands. For me, that's a deal breaker. Hearing all this was painful. I knew that leaving my hometown would mean facing prejudice, but hearing these arguments directly made me reflect. It's not just about where you come from or money, it's about how we're seen, as if we're not worthy of love or respect. I still believe that a good relationship doesn't depend on where you're from but on finding the right person, someone who accepts you for who you are. These dates showed me how much prejudice still exists, but they also made me stronger. If one day I find someone who sees me beyond these limitations, I'll know it was all worth it.
In the countryside, men over 40 who haven't married mostly end up remaining single for the rest of their lives. The main reasons for men being single in the countryside are short stature, unattractive appearance, laziness, and a lack of financial resources. How do they address these issues physically and emotionally? They don't pursue serious relationships. Instead, they spend money in foot massage shops or similar places. In rural areas, in the comments section of social media, I've seen many men saying, if they have to give a bride price, they would rather look for prostitutes than invest in marrying a real wife. So, how is this resolved? These men end up single because they can't find anyone willing to be with them, as they are considered less appealing to women. If a man is unwilling to pay a bride price, this means he's not only poor, but also selfish and incapable of loving or caring for a partner. Even men with good intentions understand that being with a wife isn't easy, but many don't show empathy. There are also those who spend years working outside the home, trying to form relationships with women in urban settings, or forming temporary bonds with colleagues at work. Hearing stories like these is common in both rural and urban environments, involving betrayals among friends and acquaintances. If you don't make an effort and your parents don't support you, the chances of this man finding a wife are low. Anyone who doesn't believe it just needs to look around. In a single village, there could be 7 or 8 single men. Maybe even more. That's the reality. Let me share with you some real stories about older single women around me. Some time ago, I made a video criticizing the situation of single men in the rural areas of Guangxi, where over 30 million single men mostly live. Many men commented, saying, "What about single women in the cities, who are everywhere too? Why don't you talk about them?" So today, I'll talk about some older single women I actually know. I didn't use the term leftover women because these women aren't actively looking for partners, so it doesn't make sense to call them that. One of them, born in 1986, I've known for almost 10 years, and I've never seen her in a relationship. She also never shares anything about her love life. Whenever the topic comes up, she avoids it, either intentionally or unintentionally. Sometimes, I even wonder if she's never had a relationship in her life. In her case, it seems to be a personality issue. It's not that she can't marry, but she simply isn't interested in men. Another woman, born in 1984, could be described as a super warrior. Until a couple of years ago, she actively sought a partner, signing up for numerous matchmaking websites. But in the past 2 years, whenever her love life is discussed, she becomes defensive, like a hedgehog, and says something like, "In our office, there are 8 women, 5 have divorced, and none of the married ones seem happy." She's a classic example of someone who couldn't get the grapes and now says they're sour. In her case, it's clear that she just can't find someone. In her eyes, no man is good enough. The truth is, we all think that her personality is difficult. She only managed to buy a small, old apartment at 40, using all her savings, and her financial situation is still tight, barely covering the mortgage and basic living expenses. When a woman has to work so hard to buy a home, it often creates a sense of superiority, which makes finding a partner even harder. Ultimately, both men and women have the right to choose whether to marry or not. But, of course, you need to meet the conditions for marriage, being someone who actively makes that choice, rather than someone who ends up single passively. I'm single, but I don't promote the single lifestyle. I want those who want to get married to find someone quickly and those who want children to have them. In the end, everyone follows their own path, and no one should judge anyone else. Hey everyone! I'm Xiaoqing. You know, lately, I've been hearing a lot of fans saying that finding a girlfriend is really difficult these days. They complain that girls have absurdly high standards now. But let me tell you, I don't agree with that at all. Here in our village, I've noticed something strange. The girls here don't have too many expectations. You'd think things would be easier, but it's the opposite. There's this girl, let's call her Xiaomai. She's stunning, tall, long legs, flawless skin, incredibly beautiful. She doesn't work outside, she just stays at home all the time. Yet, despite her beauty, she still doesn't have a boyfriend. How can that be? Isn't it supposed to be the boys who struggle to find a girlfriend? Why can't a girl as stunning as Xiaomai find a guy? I decided to go over to her house one day to chat. We used to be childhood friends, but we don't interact much anymore. When I saw her, it felt awkward, almost like we were strangers. I casually asked her, "You're not young anymore, why haven't you tried finding a boyfriend?" Her mother overheard and immediately jumped in. She began scolding Xiaomai harshly before I could finish. She said, "Who says she doesn't want a boyfriend? She does, but the guys just don't want her. She's too picky, and she thinks she's too good for anyone." I was shocked. I couldn't believe her mother said that. I mean, how could someone as beautiful as Xiaomai not find a boyfriend? Isn't it supposed to be the boys struggling, not the girls? Her mother argued that it wasn't about looks, but about Xiaomai's personality. She said she rejected guys because of trivial things. She told me that whenever a matchmaker tried to introduce a guy, Xiaomai would complain about everything: he's too short, too old, not ambitious enough, doesn't have a stable job. She even rejected guys who were decent but just didn't meet her impossible list of standards. Her mother said, at her age, she should just settle down with someone suitable. Why does she have so many requirements? But here's the crazy part. She'll reject a guy with good money because he's too old. Or reject another because he doesn't have enough ambition. Even if a guy lives too close to her parents' house. She calls it inconvenient. She even demanded ridiculous dowry sums. Once, a guy offered a 100,000 yuan dowry. But she demanded 180,000 yuan. Another guy bought a 200,000 yuan car. But she still didn't like it. She made him sell it to get a fancier one. I thought to myself, if you keep being so picky, how will you ever find someone? Are you seriously relying solely on your looks as your capital? Is that how it works now? People these days claim relationships are about compatibility and social status. But perfection doesn't exist. Even the moon has phases, sometimes full, sometimes not. Every person has flaws. In relationships, you need to amplify someone's strengths and minimize their weaknesses, as long as it's not crossing moral boundaries. I told Xiaomai that this is the best time in life to choose. When you still have the chance to be selective. When someone would even change for you. But what happens in a few years? Maybe she'll become one of those older women who no one wants to date. She'll face a reality where she's not in control anymore. The reality for older women, except those who are extremely successful and independent, is harsh. They often don't have much choice. These are women who have money, ambition, and brains. The kind that society calls powerful and classy. They don't worry about being rejected. But here in rural areas, youth and beauty are fleeting. These are precious years that shouldn't be wasted. I just talked to her like this, and it made her think. Everyone says, gold isn't pure. And no one is perfect. So, chasing the illusion of perfection in a partner means rejecting someone who could be a good match. Everyone has their quirks and experiences. And not everything will match your ideal image. I told Xiaomai that finding someone with 90% compatibility and learning to grow together, that's reality. Why reject someone just because of minor imperfections? I'm curious, have you guys encountered this kind of situation? People who are so picky that they end up never settling down? So, my advice to everyone is, don't chase unrealistic perfection. Focus on real-life connections and compatibility. Sometimes, the search for perfection results in more losses than gains. Relationships are about compromise, understanding, and effort. Not just a flawless picture in your mind. What do you think about this?
The Santa women of Guangxi. Why are they called that? In Guangxi, among single women aged 30 to 40, there are so many of them that almost every family has at least one. So why, despite being attractive and healthy, do these women struggle to find a husband? The truth is, their expectations tend to intimidate most potential partners. First, they have high expectations when it comes to lifestyle. They want a partner who can offer a stable and comfortable life, including a high-end home, financial stability, and everyday convenience. In short, they are only interested in wealthy men. They want a mansion, a luxury car, a gold necklace, but who can actually afford that? With a monthly salary of just 2,000 yuan, many men find themselves hopelessly out of reach. For those hoping to marry these women from the village, the odds are slim. Wealthy internet users often say, "That's not a problem. These men make thousands a month, and small requirements like that aren't a big deal." The second requirement of the Santa women is finding a partner who shares their educational or cultural background. They want someone with similar intellectual interests and values. In other words, if you have a postgraduate degree, your partner would also need one. This narrows the field of potential matches even more. Then comes the third demand. The Santa women want their partners to actively engage in household life, taking on responsibilities like washing clothes, cooking, and caring for children. Many men struggle with this expectation, but simply put, it means, if you marry me, you'll handle all the daily chores while I relax, sipping tea and eating fried chicken, just watching everything you do for me. That's why internet users often joke, "That's not marrying a wife, it's bringing a father home." This is why so few men meet all three requirements of the Santa women in Guangxi. This explains why these women, with long legs and flawless appearances, still end up single. After watching this video, do you think you could meet their expectations? Share your thoughts in the comments. My opinion about men in rural China, I feel sorry for them. They can't abandon their parents because of family and cultural traditions. They must support their village, tend to the farms, and often end up being taken advantage of by these women with high expectations. Fortunately, many are now turning to relationships with foreign women, which seems to be working out well, as I mentioned in another video on this channel. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. See you in the next video.